presentation not too long ago, and I was not clear if the people in the room were familiar with me. I didn't feel like I was, overwhelmed or self-conscious if the message was going to connect, but I felt that there was a need to give a little bit of background because it was just a big conference. I have to believe there was people in the room that weren't part of the selection. They were just there. And I also felt like I could use some of the things that I wanted to bring out later in the clinical piece of the topics in these three things. And those three things are, at least at the time, and what I will share now would be the three core values that I have as a practitioner, a messenger, a coach, therapist, whatever it might be. Now, number one, train equals rehab. Ding. And really, what does that mean? And obviously, we know that it started in a certain way, bridging the gap, a term that I absolutely despise and don't use. But I'll be honest, I did use it at one point. I admit my mistakes, that this was bridging the gap between personal training and physical therapy, as that was the request of the first seminar. And it obviously extends far more than that, both clinically and socially, where the big message of that first core value is this working in a team isn't necessarily about referring out all the time. It's not even about everybody always 100% agreeing on the methodology, but there's certain concepts that are just undeniable. And the connection, like I can't dissociate having, for instance, a consistent plan of nutrition with a consistent plan of rehab. Part of that core value is that no one would ever say, well, that's not my job. No one would ever say, that's not what I do. No one is ever going to be blinded by their own specialized skill set or their passion of what they're really, really good at. The running back isn't allowed to get upset if the wide receiver scores the touchdown. That can't be. That's really the core value that T equals R is really trying to demonstrate. And I use that to segue to the group. I'm like, guys, I know there were some females in the room, but I said that my stuff won't make a lot of sense if those of you that are medical are not going to work in this way with your fitness folks. This was a professional sports setting. This stuff isn't going to work if your head coach doesn't value what you're doing. And I gave the perfect example of one of the most horrible human beings I've ever encountered with. I really feel bad for his children. That's how bad this guy is. And he really, ruined a lot of the things that we had built for 10 years in Canada basketball. So these are all things that drive this core value, where it's not just a PT and a coach. It's a PT, it's a coach, it's the athletic trainer, it's the front office, all of these things for a professional sports setting. In the real world, it would be the doctor, if it's a young person, the parents. Everyone has to really be on the same page, no differently than how great businesses are run, where the CEO can really be an expert maybe in one thing, but he or she knows enough of all these other things and is able to be accountable for a model that genuinely brings everybody together. There is no T equals R if there's no accountability. There's concepts, there's a talking head, there's nothing that has any substance if there's no accountability. Core value number one of Train Equals Rehab is that all individuals and every asset or resource that we're using has some form of responsibility, authority, and accountability. When we're talking about people motivate and utilize these assets and resources and tools and exercises and needles, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the people that really have to, have the best positioning of all of these things. That was the first core value. And you see, as I share the core value, anyone listening at least has a little bit of a window as to the perspective of what comes later with that clinical message. That was number one. Number two was, I believe in all forms of science, okay? And really, if there was a way to distill science, is we're going to decide to do something because we have a strong enough belief as to what I think happens next. So of course the scientific method has to be a part of that in some way, meaning I have to have a question, I've got to run a whole bunch of tests, and then I see what the question says, and then I make a statement. That's my hypothesis, is this is what I think is going to happen, but then I got to go find the truth. And I don't think that happens a lot. I think a lot of people, we just do things because we're told to do them, and whatever standard, because science doesn't always have to mean double-blind RCTs. If science can be anything you want it to be, your standard may not be the same as someone else. I've talked about, as a heuristic, since I'm not a PhD and I don't publish my data, but I do document nearly all of it, not 100%, because Aaron Coots gave me permission. He said, Charlie, you're a heuristic. There's nothing wrong with what you do. I remember needling him when he came to consult with us at Canada Basketball many years ago, and even at the highest level of Australian sport, they had no idea that dry needling could accomplish what it was. It was, obviously, that's something that was a long time ago, and I would never forget it. But when we had friendly games in Australia, I met with Aaron and we had dinner. Of course, we also had ice cream, and we talked about heuristic, where because I don't publish my research and I'm not a PhD, that you don't listen to me. Everyone has different standards, and he felt that as long you can do whatever you want, just write it down, and then AKA show your work. And then even then, you can still believe what you believe. I'm not accountable to other people thinking that I'm allowed to do what I do or not do, and that's a big thing. But you can be, if you care what other people say, and you only want to do things that other people did 2 years ago out of context, well, then there's nothing wrong with that either. That'd be great, because that's also how we develop this scale of who's good, better, and best. In terms of science, and then as it related to the clinical topics, I went on to say that there's certain messages about certain areas of the body or certain concepts that then become like your North Star. And I don't think there's any North Star other than a complete and authentic and big enough, but no bigger, evaluation process that's what's necessary. And I think sometimes people just pick certain things that define their North Star. Like their whole program is based upon a body part, like the foot. The whole program is based upon GPS or whatever indoor system that they're using. Even some people that I highly respect, okay, what kind of director are you looking for? Is it somebody who's really rehab? Is it somebody that's really performance? Or is it somebody who's really science? Is it somebody who's really communicate? It's everything. How can you tell me that you want to put the North Star on communication and run the risk that everything is about communication? The next thing you know, everybody sucks at what they do from a clinician. I think there was certainly a clear message on my part that if you're going to pick a body part, then you definitely need to actually show results, meaning your players are healthy and you're winning games, and that's not happening. Aside from the fact that as it relates to the foot, and again, my core value is not about the foot, the talk was about the foot. I went on to say, well, you're not doing any evaluation, you're just saying the foot is the most important thing. Well, well, look, it's got 26 bones. Well, the hand has 27. So how come you don't have a model on the hand when the ball comes off the hand and ground reaction and interaction with the hand is how we win games by putting the ball in the basket? So it's just ridiculous when somebody says, well, figure there's 52 bones in both feet, so I figure it's really important. Nonsense. If that's your North Star, like really? Moving on, there's no evaluation, and then we're gonna say we're doing things for the foot. So you don't even know that the foot is important in the whole body because you didn't do an evaluation. You're not doing any evaluation to specifically confirm or deny which parts of the foot. And then we say, well, we're doing this for the midfoot. What are you measuring to say that the midfoot matters? Well, here's what you should be measuring. Number one, we should actually measure, and it's not easy to actually measure the midfoot, but you can do something. That did this thing actually change? That's number one. As it relates to the foot, I probably need to also measure some type of regional or full body interaction. I don't disagree that the foot could be causing some issues everywhere else. To assume that it does every single time to the point that you don't need to evaluate, that's not my core value. I'm going to evaluate, and I'm going to let the environment, the system, the person communicate through the lens of this objective agnostic evaluation, not an evaluation that's going to confirm what I wanted so I can run my passion, so I can do the exercises or therapies that I love doing or that I think I'm really, really good at. Thirdly, though, if your North Star and your primary treatment approach is on this one joint, well, then what are your results? That everything that we're doing should matter. Are your players healthy? And are you winning games? And that does not happen all the time. And in fact, it changes from team to team every year based on the normal distribution of talent, and et cetera. So my second core value of science was really to demonstrate the angle that I was coming through is through science. It's not that these things aren't important, but there's clearly no reason to think that any one thing is always going to be important. And then the third value, which actually kind of linked to the second and the first, is very, very simple. Many things can be true. Multiple things can be true at once. And that is somewhat of permission to say things that are objectively not positive and something that's positive. I think as long as there's no intent to actually harm someone, or maybe cost someone their job or cost someone their opportunity, I don't think there's anything wrong when asked, not when you're not asked. Nobody's coming on social media and saying so-and-so is garbage. I wouldn't do that. I think there's a track record where I haven't done that. I might be cryptic in what I'm saying, but most people aren't going to know. If you know, you know, and that's fine. But what isn't fine is this support that somehow if there's a critical message to something clinical, it is automatically associated with you're also saying things such as this individual robs banks, kicks puppies, and drops babies. That's not what's being said. What's being said is when asked, this is what I think. And if you don't agree, that's totally okay too. There's a lot of things there that can be true, and they can all live in the same message and the same ecosystem. You may not like the message, because also part of many things can be true is a lot of people say that they're open-minded until they find out everything they know is wrong.